Hello everyone, my name is Laura. This is my channel, Laura's Little Library, and welcome to today's video, which is the mid-year book freakout tag. I know we say this every year, but I cannot believe that we are halfway through the year. It is July already, and half the year is done. I always feel like the first half goes by super quickly or super slowly. This time it was super quick, and I am low-key already excited for autumn to come, even though, like, I love summer. I'm so excited for autumn to come, but then that means the year is almost over, which is super crazy. But I have not done a lot of wrap-ups this year, and my reading has been a little on the wonky side. And so not a lot of my videos have been about what I've been reading, except for, vlogs here and there. So this is a great chance and opportunity for me to catch you up on with what I've been reading, enjoying, and maybe not enjoying so far this year. And then we can get into the second half of it. So the first question on this tag is the best book of the year so far. And of course, I can't have just one. What I would love to do is to have one per genre that I read. Sorry for that interruption, we now have a cat. But even with that, I really have like a bunch of favorite fantasy books and then like one or two favorite romances. So I'm just going to choose one of each to talk about. The first one for romance is going to be Beg, Borrow, or Steal by Sarah Adams. This is Sarah Adams' newest romance book, and I loved this so much. Because of this book, and I mean her other ones, I've decided to go back and reread all of her previous works. And it has just been so interesting and so much fun to see how much she's grown as a writer, how her writing has gotten better and changed and everything like that. And so I feel like this book, Beg, Borrow, or Steal, just shows how she has continued to grow as an author, both in her writing style, doing a better job of showing and not telling, and development of characters, and just general, like, enjoyment of reading and romance between the characters, the chemistry, and everything like that. It has just been such a joy to read, especially with these characters being like enemies to lovers but both teachers, so they're both like very fun personalities who then absolutely hate each other and have like a prank war. And I mean, it is a true prank war. It is amazing and wonderful, and yet the characters do not compromise that as the story goes on, and that's just wonderful to me. And then for fantasy, it's very difficult because fantasy is such an overall genre, like one of the favorites that I've had was Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales by Heather Fawcett. Of course, this book is absolutely amazing. I will say I'm so sad that this trilogy is finished. I'm really disappointed because I have loved reading them every year, but I remember just this year reading this book with the strong themes of storytelling. It was so inspiring and motivating to read, and especially from a series that like I've already loved, very much along the lines of a lot of my own personal goals. It's been so much fun to read, and this one just especially, I was getting all kinds of emotional about the plot, the writing, our characters. It was just an amazing ending. So I really loved, obviously, the first one. I really liked the second one, and I might even want to do like a reread of the trilogy and read them one after another, especially because I feel like I did not do the second book justice when I read it. Whereas the third book, I definitely did. I could not put it down. That would be one of my favorite fantasies of this year. But then you also have books like Throne of Secrets by Carrie Maniscalco, where it's like, that's romantasy, and I gave that book 5 stars, and I loved that one a lot, but for very different reasons. So this is always just such a tough question to do because of how broad it is. If I only read one genre, it might be easier, but no, because I can't choose like a romance over a fantasy or vice versa because they are just so different. And yes, I understand that the compromise for this specifically would be romantasy. I can't do that kind of compromise. I'm sorry. The second question that I am answering is the best sequel of this year. And for that one, I'm actually gonna have to go with Cursed by Marissa Mayer. I have not actually read a lot of sequels this year. I've not read a lot of continuation of series, which is kind of interesting. I've been reading a lot of those series where it's mostly like companion novels. Like, you don't have to read them in order. There's just an order that they came out because you can't release like 3 books at once. So I've been reading a lot of companion series, or I've been starting, not necessarily starting new series, but just I've only read like 42 books so far this year, which normally I'd like to have read a little bit more, like 50 books, because my goal every year is always to read 100 books. So I'm a little bit behind, but I've been in such a slump recently. Anyway, so Cursed by Marissa Mayer. This is the second book in a duology. I also read the first book. I enjoyed the first book okay, but then the second book just got so much better. A very strong theme for both books is storytelling, and I think the author just did so well with that, with having our main character tell stories all the time while it itself being a retelling, and just all the fantasy elements. I really enjoyed how the mystery unraveled and the romance at the same time. I felt like it was very well balanced within the duology. So that would probably be like the best sequel. It was one of those rare times, and I feel like I've been saying this quite a bit recently, one of those rare times where I think I liked the second book more than I liked the first book, which is such a surprise for me, but that's why I made best sequel this year. A new release that you haven't read yet but want to. So there have been quite a few new releases within the past month that have come out that I've been wanting to read but haven't, but that's understandable because that's been the past month. Like, that's perfectly fine. However, there is one book that came out at the beginning of the year that I have not yet read, and I even own it, which is kind of ridiculous, and that is The Forest King's Daughter, and this is by Ellie Blake. Like, this came out January, maybe February, and I bought it instantly, and I just haven't picked it up yet. But I've been in such a physical reading slump, and then the book that I'm currently reading now physically is putting me in another slump. So I understand why I haven't read this, because I don't have the audiobook for it. But I do really want to read this book. This book is about the daughter of the Forest King. She has a forbidden romance with the Demon Prince, and a ring was kind of exchanged. I don't know if it was like necessarily an engagement ring or anything like that, but because of that, now the Forest King and the Demon Queen are at war, and so this is like years later. They hate each other, they're huge enemies, but she still has the ring and uses it to make herself this really cool warrior basically, but then they have to go on a quest to solve their issues in a way. Yeah, so they end up going on a journey together, and I think they're gonna fall back in love, and so I am just really excited for this. The cover seems very autumnal, which I think plays into why I haven't tried to pick it up, but also, like I said, huge reading slump, physically reading, but all the other books that I haven't read yet have just come out within the past month or so. So it makes sense, but this one has been out for a while, so I really should get to reading this soon. Now coming to the most anticipated releases for the second half of the year, I will have a video with my anticipated reads going up fairly soon after this, hopefully. I have done 2 anticipated release videos, and I will probably do at least 1 or 2 more, and this next one will be for the autumnal season, and there are so many good books that I'm really excited to come out. But right now I'm just going to talk about 2. One is What Fury Brings by Trisha Levenseller. I did mention this in the previous anticipated releases video, so if you want more information, you should totally check that. She always has such unique fantasy books, and they typically tend to be standalones or duologies, like short series, which makes them nice and manageable to read instead of getting invested into this long series. But What Fury Brings has kind of a theme of reverse bride napping a little bit, of you have this kingdom that is very low on men, and there are two sisters, and so they need to get married, or one needs to get married in order to take over the rule, and she knows of a prince in a neighboring kingdom who's kind of a pushover, not super important, so she's like, I'll just steal him to be my husband, except that something goes wrong in this brilliant plan of hers, and I believe the wrong prince is kidnapped. So I'm super excited for this to come out. I know it is coming out fairly soon. I don't remember when exactly, but within the next couple of months, and I cannot wait to sit down. It just sounds so fun. And then the other one that I'm really looking forward to is Catabases by R.F. Kuang. R.F. Kuang wrote one of my favorite books of all time, Babel, and Catabases sounds so much fun because it's another kind of dark academia. You have a couple of, I think they're grad students, which I really hope that they're grad students because I am a grad student now. I'm starting my graduate studies this fall, so it would be perfect. Anyway, I digress. And so you're following these two students, well, you're following one of them, and her professor kind of has the power to make or break her future career, but he ends up dying and like going to hell, and this student says, nope, not on my watch, he's too important. So she is going to go down and try to save him so that her entire future isn't screwed. But there's another grad student who might also be going down to hell for this professor, but for a very different reason. So I'm really excited to see how this plays out. I'm very intrigued. It's another like magic-based scholastic study, but the way that R.F. Kuang writes, it's still very realistic and very like easy to follow, but without spoon-feeding you, you know? So I'm so excited to read her newest novel, After Babel. I cannot wait. And we have a cover for this one, and it is so cool. Oh my gosh. It is going to be an instant buy. I know that for sure when it comes out. Next is the book that is the biggest disappointment. And so for this one, I'm going with the book that is putting me in a reading slump, okay? When summer hit, I have few plans this summer, so I just wanted to sit and read books. That's all I wanted to do, and I was really excited to pick this book up. I thought it would be the perfect book to get me back into physically reading after not having read it, like physically read all spring long basically. And so I thought this book was going to be great. It was a new release, super excited. I loved all the other books by this author, but I started reading this one. I am over halfway, and it has put me into a slump. I do not like it. I'm so disappointed by it, and that is Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. I am sorry. If you're enjoying this book, great. I'm happy for you. I am having such a hard time reading this, and it's not for lack of time. With this book, you have two writers who both kind of work in the biography world and in journalism, and then you've got this like family that was kind of in charge of all the media, you know. They're very well known, rich family, everybody follows them, and the like the daughter of the empire basically kind of goes off the face of the earth for 5-10 years or something like that. And all of a sudden, these two writers have the opportunity to write her biography, to talk with her, get interviews, and write her story. And, but it's a competition, only one of them can actually write the book. So they each get a month with her, and then she's going to decide who gets to write her story. And I mean, I liked the premise of it. It sounded interesting. It sounded like one I would love because you've got like the rivals to lovers, romance. It's a romance book, but everything wrong with this book is the romance. I think there is no chemistry between the characters. I don't like them together, but that also could be because they don't have enough time together. So much of this book is this empire rich woman's story, either it be her telling the story or the writers thinking about the story, and not enough about each other that I don't feel a connection between the two of them. So anytime that there's supposed to be like a romantic or a spicy scene, it doesn't make sense, and it makes me cringe because it doesn't feel like a romance. It feels like a literary fiction book with romance in it as opposed to a romance book. So I feel like I'm tearing this apart, and I'm so sorry, but like I have loved Emily Henry's other books, most of them, and so to have tropes that I love and this be her newest book, I was super excited, and now I'm just so disappointed by it. Obviously, I'm still gonna finish it. Like I said, I'm over halfway. I'm still gonna finish it, but man, I'm not reading this near as fast as I was hoping I would. Like, this is probably gonna be the only book I read all summer. Now, what was the biggest surprise of this year so far? And for me, that would probably be Magic Lies and Deadly Pies by Misha Pop. This book is like that cozy mystery, but like not a mystery because you're following the killer. Your main character, Daisy, the women in her family all have magic, but it's unique to them. It's the idea, like they do something creative. For her, it's baking pies, and she's able to bake magic into her pies, and she uses that magic to unalive men who are abusive or are terrible to women, their wives, girlfriends, etc. and so forth. Like, she goes to a support group and has a side business alongside her regular pie business to unalive men who are terrible men. But it's also like, it's a light and fluffy kind of funny read as well. Like, it sounds super dark, but it's not at all. And it was a big surprise how much I really enjoyed it, because there's a lot of baking in here and a lot of pies, which I don't bake a lot of pies, but I kind of would love to bake a lot of pies now. And it was so fun. I'm currently reading the second book. I'm almost done with it. The second book is literally the Great British Baking Show, just add a little bit of murder in there. But I've heard really good things about the third book in the series as well. Like, the third book kind of returning back to the original premise, more so that the first book is. So I am really excited. And also, this is the kind of book that I feel like would be a one-off as opposed to a series, or like, you know, you read the first book and you're kind of done with it. You don't need to read more. But no, I'm really excited and happy to be reading more of this book. Also, our main character is queer, and I love that. So it's just wonderful to have like that representation. Like, I knew I would enjoy it, but I thought it was gonna be a solid 3 or 4 star. But I actually ended up loving the first book, so that's great. Favorite new author for this year. This is tricky because I don't read books by author too much. The books I read because of the author are books that I've read that author for many years now, you know, like Elizabeth Lim or Trisha Levenseller, you know, authors like that where I just read everything. But other than that, so like, they're not new favorite authors, you know, they're not new. But every other book I read because I like the premise, and not that I don't pay attention to the author, but I don't always say, yes, I'll read it, no, I won't read it because of the author. If the premise sounds interesting, then I'm gonna read it, hopefully, in theory. So this is always super difficult for me to do because, like, I can't say Sarah Adams because I'm pretty sure I said her last year, even though I've continued to read all of her books this year. So I'm going to say Ashley Herring Blake because I don't think I've said her before, but I could be wrong. It's just such a difficult question for me. But Ashley Herring Blake, I have read 3 of their books, and I have 1 more to go, I think. Like, I've read Delilah Green Doesn't Care, Iris Kelly Doesn't Date, and Make the Season Bright, which is like the Christmas special, basically. I only need to read Ashton Parker Doesn't Fail, but I now own that book and hopefully will be reading it soon. And I've just been enjoying them. They're just fun, sapphic romances. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I'm gonna say about that. Next up is news fictional crush. I don't really do fictional crushes also because, I mean, I always love the love interests in books, right? That's kind of, you know, that's the whole point, because I feel like with the main characters, we are too much in their head for me to like love them. You know, like, I'll love reading from them or I'll care for them as a character, but I don't like love them like you love the love interest. And that, you know, is also just because of the light that they are painted in by the main character, because it's always from their point of view. So that's the reason why I like never do main characters of books, is because I am too close to them, versus the love interests are the ones that are fascinating and are presented in the way for me to love them. So for this year, I'm going to say Yi Young from Of Jade and Dragons. Yes, Of Jade and Dragons by Amber Chen. This is a really fun, slightly sci-fi fantasy. Not very sci-fi, just like, you know, she wants to be an engineer. You know, he's like, I think he's the 8th brother of the royal line and kind of has his own territory and army and things like that, but he's just like that classic, dark, mysterious, but Same thing with newest favorite character. Again, really difficult for me to say, but for this one, I do have an answer. And that answer is Jessie from The Temporary Roommate by Sarah Adams, which kind of surprises me because with a lot of Sarah Adams, like first 4 books, you know, earlier works, not the best writing, still kind of getting into the groove of things, but I really liked Jessie. I liked her as the best friend in the first book in this kind of companion duology, and I love her in this one. She owns a salon, she is pregnant throughout the duration of these 2 books, and she is just one of those, like, will take you down a peg if you need it, super blunt, super funny, such spunk to her. And I really enjoyed reading that spunk. I feel like spunky characters, if they're the main characters, you lose a little bit of that spunk because they are the main character. Whereas if they are the side characters, they get that spunk, but that's not as prevalent in the story because they're a side character. I really appreciated the amount of spunk that she had as the main character in this book, and I think that, yes, she would be like the super fun friend to go out and have a good time with and just do various activities to chat with and whatnot. So I really liked her. The next one is a book that made you cry. I don't really cry for books or really a lot of media. There are a few exceptions, like the movie Encanto, I cry every single time. The Wild Robot, I bawled in theaters. I didn't bawl the second time I saw it though, so maybe that's under control. But I don't cry a lot for media, stories, things like that. So I don't really have a true answer for this. I will say the book that kind of made me the most emotional continued to be the Fence graphic novels, just because it hits so close to home for me, because I am also a fencer, and so to read stories and graphic novels with my sports that, you know, anybody outside of my fencing academy, they're like, oh, I'm a fencer, they're like, that's the one with sword fighting? Yeah, like, and then they always just lose it, which is like, yeah, it is a cool sport, and it's not super common where I live, so just to have a graphic novel with that representation and then with queer representation, it makes me feel so seen. And even though they're epeists and I'm a foilist, it's still just so much fun to read and so sweet to read, and it like makes me emotional every time. I don't cry, but it is definitely the most emotional for me. Getting close to the end is a book that made you happy. I will say the book I have chosen for this, the one that makes me happy, reading it, it was not a 5-star. It was a 4-star. And I mean, it made me happy because of its existence, not necessarily because of like how well it was written or anything like that. Like, it's still a good book. I would still recommend it, but I'm just happy that it's there because it sounds really cool, and I like how certain elements were done, but other elements could definitely have been improved on. But it made me happy, okay? And that is A Language of Dragons by S.F. Williamson. So this is like another one of those books, kind of like Babel, where it is language focused, and that, because I'm a language geek, I love language learning and code breaking and things like that with language. It was very much right down my alley, and of course dragons, course. So this one, you have your main character who speaks a bunch of different dragon languages, and she accidentally commits like this ginormous crime against the government, and instead of putting her in jail, they say, you are going to work as a code breaker for us. There is this dragon language that is unlike any other language they've known about before, and they need somebody to decode it. And so because she has a lot of experience with dragon languages, she's the best candidate to do so. That made me happy because I loved the idea of using background knowledge of languages to crack another language. It is still very difficult for me to wrap my mind around a couple of things, and I think like the romance plots or the interactions between characters and the relationships were still kind of like fuzzy, maybe not the best, but the writing wasn't bad, and it just made me happy that it existed, and it was still a fun read. Now, the last one are what are the books that you need to read by the end of the year. Of course, there are so many. I would love to read a lot of the new releases that just came out and a lot of new releases that are coming out, but then there are also a bunch of books kind of on my backlist that I would love to get through. For the most part, I would love to just keep reading books because, like I said, I am behind on my goal. Not that that's a huge thing, like numbers aren't that big of a deal to me. It's more so the fact that I'm not reading as much as I used to, and I miss reading that much. That is the issue, rather than like the numbers themselves. I just have been in such a slump and I've been super busy, so hopefully I will just read more in general. I also really need to do a huge cleanup of my TBR because I feel like I was going through my TBR on Goodreads recently and it was very much like, this could probably be taken off. I'm not interested in this. I don't even know what this is or care to know what it is. So I feel like I just need to do a huge cleaning up of my TBR and then actually read the books that I want to read, because that's the other thing. It's like there'll be these independent books that I'm like interested in, but in the reality of things, I want to read these and these and these books, and I'm not letting myself do that because there are other books I feel like I should read or that I would want to read but don't actually want to. So many books that I want to read by the end of the year. I have a huge physical TBR and I would love to get through that, especially because we are moving into an apartment, so the number of books I can bring with me has grown smaller. So if I get my physical TBR down, then I can, of course, get more books and stuff. But I will say one of my huge goals that I should have, I hope to complete, please. I've been working on this for years, let me tell you, is to finish reading Throne of Glass. I have been reading this series, like I said, for years. I have been vlogging reading this series for years. I have lived in Michigan for 2 years now. I started reading this series and vlogging the reading back in Minnesota, where I lived before this, which is crazy because like when I finally finish the series and that vlog does come out, my hair goes through so many different changes, you know, like it was back when I was blonde and had a shaved side. I started reading the series. Now I've grown out that side and my hair is tinted red a little bit. So like so much has happened. And I'm holding up Queen of Shadows because I'm at the very beginning of Queen of Shadows. I basically just need to start Queen of Shadows over. And I get asked if I'm going to do a tandem read for the next two. Maybe. It honestly just depends on the time that I have and energy I have to put into it because I'm starting grad school. So I would really love to at least read Queen of Shadows by the end of the year, if not actually finally finish the Throne of Glass series. So there, I have a book. Alright, that is everything. Thank you all so much for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, comment down below any of your answers to any of the questions of this tag, or if you are also a bookish creator. I feel like I'm not watching as much bookish content as I would like to be, so if you're a content creator, please link your mid-year book freakout tag video in the comments below and share the love. And if you like bookish content like this, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell to be notified. I'm trying to post videos every week, but like I said, I'm in this transitional period between housing situations. I moved out of our house, but we haven't yet moved into our apartment, so things are a little fuzzy. So thank you for your patience, but that's why you should hit the bell to be notified when those videos do go up. So again, thank you very much for watching, and until I see you in the next video, I wish you happy reading!